Oh, hi. So I had an idea. I had a thought, I should say. What if engines didn't throw rods? They just tossed them. You know, I feel like you could repair a tossed rod a lot easier than a thrown rod. Little update. We had an issue, which I still don't know exactly what's wrong yet. The Dodge might have pushed all 3 gallons of its oil into the cooling system. So everyone has told me to check the oil cooler. However, I put it back on the truck so the engine wasn't open out in the elements because we had to put it back outside to get out of the way. So now we got to go outside where it's kind of cold and take the oil cooler off. But we're going to go do that, get the oil cooler off, and find some magical way to pressure test it. We might have to find a piece of plate, which I'm sure there's a piece of plate laying around here somewhere. I'm going to get like an O-ring, put it over the hole, probably drill a hole in it, pressurize it, put a gauge on it, whatever. Put it in a bucket of water, spray it with soapy water or something. But we're going to test it and see if we can find a leak. And if we can, hopefully a parts store local has an oil cooler. I'm sure it's going to be expensive, but Dodge needs to be running. It's so close. All right, for those of you that don't know, the oil cooler is behind here. This is the oil filter housing. The oil cooler sits inside of there. Coolant flows around it, and then the oil comes through a little hole and then goes back out a little hole, and the coolant's supposed to cool down the oil. Well, if that's leaking, then the oil that's supposed to be in there is making its way into the cooling system, and that would be my problem. But this hose right here was definitely full of oil. It didn't make it up this high. I did pull this hose off. So I'm going to get this off here and see if we can find a way to pressure test it and see if that's actually the problem. Alright guys, so basically this is the oil cooler. The little fins here, they let coolant flow around it, and then the oil comes in on these ports here. You got an inlet and an outlet, or the other way around, I'm not sure. But anyway, the oil goes in and comes out, and then the coolant flows around. This basically sits in the cooling system on the block, and the coolant flows through these fins here and cools the oil. But usually what happens is when they build these have little crimps that roll over the edge and seal each individual panel from being contaminated or contaminating the cooling system, and a lot of times they just leak. They're not very well built most of the time, and there's too many places in China that's putting these things together. But essentially we're going to try to pressure test this the best we can and see if there's any leaks that are like dead giveaway, hey, I'm the problem. And we've already sourced one in town, so we're going to go to the parts store and pick it up if that's the issue. I'm probably going to take a plate and clamp a plate on here. I'll grab an O-ring that's slightly bigger than this hole, and I'll probably just take some of those super cool carpenter clamps and clamp down that plate here to seal this off. And then we'll go ahead and pressurize it over here and see if we can find a way to get a gauge on it so that we can read it, or we can just stick it in a bucket of soapy water. That would be a good solution as well. But either way, we got it out. We're going to test it, and we'll be back when we got this thing probably submerged in a bucket of water or something. Okay, here's our contraption. I took a piece of plate that we had laying around from a staircase project that's getting done, and I stuck an O-ring in there, which you probably can't see, but there's an O-ring down in there right where the hole is, so that we got that plugged off, and we clamped it down pretty good. It's got quite a bit of pressure on it. There's probably a ton of pressure on this thing right now, but I'm going to try to use this with tape on it, because it was the wrong size to begin with, to put pressure on this port right here and see if he can spray it with our custom testing device with literally water and Dawn dish soap and see if it bubbles down here on these fins, and that will let us know if this cooler is pushing oil into the cooling system.
As long as we can get it to seal.
As long as we can get it to seal, right. I had a crazy idea because I couldn't hold, wherever it is, where'd it go? Oh, that's gone. Yeah, he took all the tape off of it. But anyway, this god-awful thing had like 3 miles of tape on it, and I couldn't hold it hard enough to get a seal while he was spraying water on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the regulator on this air compressor, because it's already got a regulator built in. We're going to turn it down, and then we're going to slowly kind of feather in the air. I'm going to drill a hole in this plate. We're going to put an O-ring on it, just like on this plate. It's already here. We're going to put an O-ring on it, and then we're going to, I've already started drilling. We're going to put this fitting on it so we can hook the air hose up, keep constant pressure on it, spray it with soapy water, because I was probably only getting like 30 psi. It was leaking the whole time I was trying to press it. Hopefully the problem will present itself and we'll be able to find a leak, because they have an oil cooler in town that I can go pick up at the parts store. They're not too bad. They're under $200. I think I paid like $300 for this one. And if it leaks, then it doesn't matter what I spend on it. But we're going to get it tested. I got to finish drilling this hole real quick, and then okie dokie. So now take this plate and
weld it.
We'll weld that air fitting to it, and then we can O-ring it and smush it down on there and hopefully get a good seal. So I'm going to fire the MIG up. We're going to get this air fitting welded to this plate. Damn near threads in there. Be funny if we tapped it. All right, you ready? All right, we got good news. No, we have good news. It's not all bad news. It's not all good news, that's for sure.
I'm a pessimist.
Yeah, that thing. So we got the oil filter housing, oil cooler, everything's back on. I snugged it down real good, but we found that there are no leaks, which for once I actually was hoping that there would be leaks, because that would tell us that that's the entire problem. However, now it's looking like we have a cracked block or maybe a head gasket failure, but we're going to have to pull the head off and see. It's moving quite a bit of oil. I mean, it put all 3 gallons minus maybe like 2 quarts in the coolant system. I pulled the drain plug on the pan a minute ago. The oil looks amazing. It doesn't have any like chunks or sparklies or anything in it. So I think we're good on that. I don't think the motor's hurt, but if the block is cracked, obviously the block is trash. So we might have to get a block. The pistons are good, the rods, the crank, everything should be fine, and I'll be able to reuse my cam and my lifters or my tappets. All that stuff should be fine. So I don't think we'll have any issues on that. But if the block's cracked, I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it.
It's junk.
But if I can find a good 06 short block, that would be amazing, because this is a 98.5 to 02 block, and it's not right for the truck. So we had to do a lot of drilling and tapping, and we had to make a custom oil pan, and it's just what I had the money to get at the time. But now it's looking like we're going to be pulling the cylinder head off this thing. Zach, what are we doing? You about to go do what to your sister?
Oh no, we're about to put the truck in the shop so we can continue working.
Oh, I heard you wrong. Okay, gotcha. So we got hooked up to the Dodge here. We're gonna go ahead and pull it all the way around the trailer and the dump truck and the tree, and then we'll be putting it in the shop. And I'm gonna get the cylinder head yanked off of this thing and see what's going on. I don't know if it's a head gasket or if the block's cracked, but we should know pretty soon what the deal is, what the culprit is, because it's not the oil cooler. I can confidently say that the oil cooler is not the problem. So we're gonna get this thing pulled in the shop. done. All right. Hey. Hi, YouTube. Say hi, YouTube. Hi, YouTube. All right, Dodge is back in the shop. I know it's not going to be the last time, but hopefully, let me get my words out. Hopefully it's the last time for any major engine issues. So we're going to get the head yanked off this thing. I got to go help him on his truck so he can wee-bow. He wants to take it out tonight and show all his car friends his cool truck. So we're going to go work on his truck for a little bit, and then we'll be here probably all night pulling this thing apart. We got to get condenser, intercooler, radiator, fan, accessories, intake, turbo, exhaust.
I'll say just the whole manifold.
Yeah, we'll pull it all at once. And then we'll be able to yank the head off. Sounds easy, but it's really not.
No. Gonna be like a 20-minute.
Man, I literally I dread doing the valve lash on this thing more than pulling the head off. Because it takes so long.
It's gonna be awful.
I'm glad I just bought new feeler gauges though. Okay, Dodge is in the shop. We're gonna go work on Zach's truck.